Well, tonight the Foreign Office refused to comment on internal discussions. But I am joined now by Paul Everett, the Chief Executive of the British Defence Organisation, ADS. Paul Everett, let's start with what Saeed Abbasi said, the clip you just saw there, that it's nonsense for the British taxpayer, on the one hand, to be paying to patch up civilians wounded by the arms that we, Britain, have exported.
Well, I certainly understand the level of public concern, but I think we need to be quite cautious. As far as I'm aware, there are military goods going to Israel, as your figures highlight, but I'm not convinced in any way that it's actually military equipment being used by the Israeli military.
Well, Saeed Abbasi's only just left the Foreign Office, and she seems to think that there's a contradiction here between what we spend in aid and the fact that we're exporting those weapons that destroy people's lives. I
can only say again, really, which is that it is not clear, and I would be very, very surprised to see UK military equipment being used by the Israeli military. The equipment, relatively small amounts of military equipment that is shipped to Israel, a significant proportion of that is actually incorporated by the Israeli defence industry into equipment that is sent to other parts of the world, and the export licence regime clearly shows that. So this is not kind of, you can check very clearly.
Even if it's relatively small, as you say, it's still estimated 10 to 15 million pounds of military equipment exported to Israel a year.
And a significant...
And the Foreign Office believes that some of that is turned on civilians.
Again, I can't comment on what Baroness Abbasi does or doesn't know. All I can report is, the reading of the information that is available makes it very clear that the majority of the equipment is actually for onward export, and the rest of the military equipment, as you highlight, is actually for civilian use.
Well, so except these 47 open licences that are granted to allow unlimited export of military equipment.
And again, the export licensing regime is quite a very strict one, and open licences are only provided in circumstances where, if you like, the equipment is not sensitive or regarded as sensitive, and the end users are not sensitive.
So you're saying that an arms embargo is completely unnecessary, basically?
An arms embargo is a subject for the government to make a decision on. I'm really trying to explain that there is obviously a great deal of public concern about events in Israel and in Gaza. I think from a defence industry perspective, it's important that people understand that we as an industry are not engaged in supporting or providing equipment that is being used in the way that it has been alleged.
Okay, so from a defence industry's perspective, an arms embargo would be ineffective?
Again, we are a circumspect and cautious industry. Our biggest customer is the UK government and our UK forces, and we would never be exporting any equipment without the explicit approval of the UK government, and that's what the licensing regime provides.
Okay, but as a representative of the defence industry, how do you feel when you see this carnage on our screens? How do you feel personally seeing those wounded civilians?
Clearly, anybody who sees that can be only upset. And I think that one of the reasons why I'm agreeing to do this is to draw a very clear distinction, which is that those sorts of activities clearly are inappropriate, but equally that the UK defence industry is not providing or supplying equipment that allows it to happen.
Paul Everett, thank you very much for joining me.